My name is Allison Anderson, and I am here with Education 507 for Cohort 388, and I am presenting on Assignment 5 on Technology and Diversity in Education. I chose option 2, which was looking at different types of accessibilities features online. So the rationale behind this assignment is that all students must have equal access to education, both in the physical and digital spaces. We expect there to be handicap accessible doors and elevators and ramps. We must expect the same for our online instruction and materials. Not only that, school districts are legally required to provide accessible learning materials under the Disability Standards for Education 2005. This includes creating accessible features for students who may have be hard of hearing or may be blind or may have any other cognitive or physical disability. Not only that, many institutions do not currently meet the accessibility requirements, and over 90% of higher education institutions do not do this. Part of this is that so much time has been put into just creating these digital spaces that the same time has not been put into finding the accessible ways that we can provide unique and equitable learning for all of our students. And not only is it legally required, but it is our moral duty to make all digital materials available to all students. It is not equitable and it is not fair if some students are better able to access some things online when others are not able to do that or are unable to read or hear the things that are being supplied online. So there's a few things that we looked at. The first was Google and Microsoft, and here are 5 takeaways of things to consider when using Google and Microsoft when creating accessible documents for students. First off, check the accessibility in Word and the PDF versions. So just because something is accessible in Microsoft Word does not mean it's necessarily accessible in a PDF version. So if you create a document in Word or in Google Docs and make sure it's accessible, make sure that once you convert it into a PDF, those same accessibility features are available in the PDF. To do that, do not do print to PDF, but rather actually save it as a PDF. Most Google applications have screen reader abilities, so keep that in mind as you're creating your Google Docs. Try not to be redundant. Include descriptions on pictures, but those Google applications do have those screen reader abilities. Another one, it seems small, but it could make a big difference, is that sans serif fonts are more accessible. They're easier to read and they can provide more clarity. So things like Calibri or Arial can be more accessible for students. Tables can cause trouble. This is something that I often struggle with. I like to organize things in documents with tables and then make all the lines disappear. Rather than use those tables, use some of the organization features that are already highlighted in Google Docs. And then using alternative text to describe pictures and tables is a benefit to all, even if there is a student who is able to access everything. If their internet is not working, for example, and isn't able to load a picture or a table, they can then use alt text to describe it. Another thing to think about is when we're looking at accessibility in PDF files. So we want to make sure that we're using the built-in organization tools in Microsoft Word. So when you're converting from Word to a PDF file, there aren't any worries about tables, like I mentioned earlier. Use the headings and subheadings to help create a more accessible PDF file. Make sure you're using alternative text for all images, and do not be redundant with that alternative text, but make sure that it is fully described. Use the check accessibility feature. So if you are creating a PDF in Microsoft Word first, there is a check accessibility feature that can help keep you on track. And then, like I said earlier, do not use print to PDF when creating accessible PDFs. Actually save it as a new file or go into Adobe and upload your file through there. So I did create an accessible PDF that shows some of those features. Few things. Closed captions can be super helpful for students who need accessible features. They can be fairly accurate. When I reviewed the video Future of the Game, baseball's latest statistical revolution, most captions were accurate. I'd say it was about 90 to 95% accurate. When I played with the speed, it did not affect the accuracy of the closed caption, and any mistakes that were made when it was sped up or slowed down were the same mistakes that were made when it was played at a normal speed. And closed captions can benefit many students. Students who have hearing disabilities definitely benefit, but also students who may be learning English or may process in different ways. Having the words there can really benefit them. So I did create a sample video that goes through some things. We'll take a moment and watch it, and we can see those closed captions. Hello, and welcome to Shakopee School's Canvas page. With this video, So you can see that the closed captions are fairly accurate. It did have some trouble with the nouns about Shakopee and sabers and some of those are formal nouns. But overall, it does a pretty good job of creating accurate closed captions. All right, so going on to website readability. I did not realize that there are so many different options for creating accessible websites. And one of the big things is contrast and color accessibility. There is the WCAG2, which are the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, highlights a few things that are necessary in order for a website to be considered accessible. First off, the contrast between the background color and the text must be at least 7:1 to be considered accessible, according to the most stringent rules. The size of the text and the purpose of the text can impact the minimum contrast ratio. So if you have very large text, it doesn't necessarily need to fit that 7:1 contrast ratio, but it is desirable to be there. And then they have this very handy website where you can check your contrast levels using the Web AIM contrast checker, where you can put in your different colors and see if it matches up with the ratios. So I did that here in this next example, and you can see with some different ones, they have different contrast ratios. So the one with its purple and the blue is a much higher contrast ratio, so it's easier to read than the pink and the cream. But if you're ever unsure, you can use that tool to figure out if your website is accessible. And lastly, website readability, we have alt text. So a few takeaways about alternative text for pictures is that more is not always better. It's not always best to write out every single thing you can see about a picture, because oftentimes the text will describe some of the things as well. So keep in mind that the text reader is reading everything that's there. If it's already written around the picture, it does not need to be included with the alt text. Consider the content and the function of the image. If it is a link, make sure to include that. Consider why is this picture important, and make sure that you include that in the alt text. And then lastly, alt text is beneficial for all digital users because it will help show up if an image isn't loading properly, or if someone has a hard time determining what that is a picture of, that alt text can be beneficial for all. So thank you very much. And this was my presentation on accessibility features in the digital world. Thank you.